It's Friday here on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your host, Maureen, and this week we're talking about Ouija boards. I'm really excited about doing this topic this week because I've done actually a lot of research on the history of the Ouija board. First, to start off, the Ouija board is not something new. The whole concept of the Ouija board is not something new. Spirit boards are basically Ouija boards. It's kind of like the Q-tip. Q-tip is a brand. They're really called cotton swabs, but everyone refers to cotton swabs as a Q-tip just because that's what we've grown up calling it for so long. The Ouija board is the same kind of concept. So the idea of the name of the Ouija board comes from the French word for oui or yes, and the German word ja or yes. So the Ouija board is basically the YesYes board. The man who patented the Ouija board was named Elijah Wood. And there's a lot of history behind his death. It's all kind of interesting about him falling down from a roof of his house that he was building, and supposedly the Ouija board caused it and everything. And I think that's a lot of what the Ouija board gets its bad rep from, is all from those kinds of stories and everything. And also because the Ouija board really started to take off in pop culture during the spiritual movement. The spiritual movement really took off in the 1840s and continued through into the 1920s. During the spiritual movement, this is when the seances and the idea of the table tipping and things like that really started to kick off. It's also when we started having a lot of the quote-unquote psychics who were truly not psychic start to come into the picture and take people for their money. The spiritual movement wasn't so much a religious movement, it was just a movement in the term of people becoming more aware and more accepting of the idea of a spirit world. I don't want to do a whole lot of talking on the history of the Ouija board. It's very long and it can get a little bit dry. So if you want to look more into the history, aside from Wikipedia, I would highly suggest checking out ElijahBond.com and also museumofthetalkingboards.com. Those two I use the most in my research for a Ouija board paper that I wrote. As my personal feelings on the Ouija board, is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Stories, what have you. I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm torn, I don't know. My first experience with the Ouija board, I saw it in movies and TV and everything. So I remember asking for it for, I believe, my 13th birthday. And I got one of those glow-in-the-dark ones from Parker Brothers because they are the only ones that make it, really. But I had it, and I remember doing a seance with it with my friends at a sleepover party. It was a goofy thing, whatever. Didn't really understand the whole concept of the Ouija board fully. Just knew what I knew from movies and TV and stuff like that. I would say that I had a bad experience. Maybe not a bad experience. Maybe just an experience that wasn't a lot of fun. It was a slumber party I did for my birthday. We did a seance. Didn't properly close the door at the end of it, and had an individual who stayed with me in my house for a couple of weeks that was not very friendly. I don't want to go into it too much. He would just bug the crap out of me at night, and it took a superstitious thing that my husband knew about from the Catholic Church with using an egg and stuff to get rid of him. But whatever, that's not important. Anyway, that's really the only experience I really had with a Ouija board that was outside of, goofing around and scaring each other with pushing it and everything. Though I have to admit, after that use, I stuffed it in my closet and I haven't touched it. I've heard from several different sources that you should never burn a Ouija board, especially if you've used it. because there are so many energies that are within that Ouija board. So I still have it. It's at my dad's house back in Chicago. It's still sitting in the same closet it's been sitting in forever. Um, and I refuse to burn it. I haven't thrown it away. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to do with it. Eventually, something needs to be done with it, but I just need to figure out exactly what. I've talked about the Ouija board with one of my mentors and asked her opinion on it. And she said the Ouija board definitely isn't a bad thing. I think the Ouija board gets a bad rep from the Christian church, just like how many other things get bad reps from the Christian church, in the sense that uh, Christians believe that you're not supposed to know the future and you're not supposed to communicate with evil spirits and what have you. So you're taught and it's perceived that Ouija boards are bad. You look at movies and everything like uh, paranormal, that last big movie that was out, Paranormal Experience or whatever, um, Paranormal Activity, and which I thought was a kind of, I didn't think it was that scary, you guys. Sorry, but I whatever. Anyway, um, but yeah, that whole nonsense and that it went up in flames and everything like that. I've never heard of that and it ever really happening to anybody. Though I'm not doubting that it could. But I just think that a lot of people tend to demonize it simply because of what they've been told from the Christian church about it. Um, but back to what my mentor said about it, she said that if you go into it with a mind that it could potentially be a bad thing, it's going to be a bad thing, or it could potentially be one. Um, it's best to go into it with an intent of asking questions, maybe to your spirit guide or personal spirits or whatever. Uh, Say a little prayer beforehand to the goddess to protect you and to make sure that all evil energies stay away. And she said, even cast a circle if you feel it's necessary to keep any kind of bad energies out and away from the board so that they're not messing around with it. Um, and when I sat down and thought about it, it made a lot of sense. The idea of the Ouija board, it's a spirit board. It's a way to communicate through the veil. It doesn't have to be a bad thing unless you want to make it into something bigger than what it is. So I hope that gave you guys a little bit of insight onto a small piece of the history of the Ouija board, my personal beliefs on the Ouija board, gave you a different perspective on maybe something that originally seemed bad to you. I really don't think the Ouija board is a bad thing. I think it's actually a very helpful tool. I think next time I go home, I'm probably going to bring my one from Chicago back to San Diego with me and start using it again in a much safer, um, smart way now that I really understand how to protect myself with it and use it properly. So I hope you guys all have a great weekend and bright and happy blessings.